Welcome to Inside the Actor's Studio, from beyond the grave. And if I may, there are guests, and then there are forces, there are performers, and then there are presences, there are stories, and then there is legend. And then, beyond all of that, beyond the limits of language, beyond the scope of history, beyond the reach of human comprehension, there is tonight's guest. His name, when spoken, sends ripples through the fragile fabric of the mind. His image, when glimpsed, unravels the delicate sanity we clutch so desperately. His influence, though unseen, has shaped the course of human existence itself, not through will or malice, but through the sheer and terrible gravity of his being. His dreams, we are told, are not his alone. They seep, they spread, they take root in the minds of the desperate, the brilliant, the lost. They have whispered to the ancient priests and the mad kings. They have called to the poets, the scholars, the revolutionaries. They have stirred in the hearts of those who have reshaped the world in ways they did not, could not understand. And so, across the ages, he has been worshipped, feared, denied, and invoked. He has lurked in shadow and madness, his name an unspoken pulse beneath the surface of history. And yet, for all that has been written, for all that has been feared, for all that has been suffered in his wake, he has never spoken. Until now. Here, for the first time, we speak with Cthulhu, the Lord of the Abyssal Night himself. Not to those who claim to serve him, not to those who have attempted to decipher his meaning, but to the Old One, sleeper of Relaya. For in recent years, whether by fate, by madness, or by the slow and inevitable shifting of the stars, his work has become undeniable once more. There was a time, or so we tell ourselves, when nations were built upon a shared story, an identity crafted from common myths, common values, common struggles. But now, what was once a single narrative has shattered not into two, but into many, each self-contained, self-reinforcing, self-justifying. It is no longer simply a battle of ideas, but a battle for reality itself. A battle shaped by two forces that Cthulhu wields over the hearts of men as the tailor wields needle and shears, and the focus of our discussion tonight. Mania and paranoia. On one hand, mania, a fevered, unwavering conviction, the kind that blinds men to doubt and binds them to destiny. It tells them that their movement is not merely right, but inevitable. That history itself bends toward their vision, whether that vision is one of triumphant return or of radical reinvention. It is the drumbeat of belief, deafening, relentless. On the other hand, paranoia, the slow erosion of certainty, the gnawing conviction that nothing, not the news, not the government, not even one's own memory, can be trusted. Every contradiction is confirmation. Every answer is suspect. In the end, one does not merely doubt a given narrative. One doubts all narratives. And in doubting all, we lose all grounding. And so, tonight we speak of the modern age, of the art and philosophy that bears his mark, of the chaos and collapse that many have seen as his doing. Cthulhu, great dreamer, sleeper beneath the waves. I thank you for joining us. So let me ask you the question that haunts the minds of all who dare to look too closely at the edges of our reality. Has this moment, this age of fracture and fevered belief, truly been an awakening of your design? Or is it merely the same pattern, repeating once more as the stars inch ever closer to their destined alignment?
Your words fall like ash on a dying wind. Gratitude, hostility, hope, fear, these are frail noises of frail things.
And yet, words are what we have. Through them, we attempt to grasp meaning. And many believe that meaning has frayed, that we are unmoored in a way humanity has never been before, that we have lost the story that once held us together. Is this your work?
Your stories have always been sand upon the tide. You build, you believe, you watch them wash away. And again you build, you believe, you forget the drownings of those before you.
So, this moment in history is not unique. The fractures, the fevers of belief, the unraveling of certainty, these are merely the repetitions of a cycle.
Not mine, not yours. The cycle does not belong to those who suffer it. It moves, it consumes, it births and devours without purpose, without design, without end.
And yet, there are those who see your influence in all of this. The creeping madness, the dissolution of reality, the descent into chaos. They say these are your signs, your heralds. Do they misunderstand you?
They understand as a moth understands the flame. They name me Lord of Madness, but I am not Lord. They call me Architect of Ruin, but I do not build. I sleep, I dream, and in dreaming I am dreamed.
So then, it is not merely our minds shaping the terror. It is you, through us, through our fears and convictions, through the spirals of mania and paranoia that define our age. You claim no lordship, and yet, it is your dream, is it not, that we enact?
It is not dreamed, it is dreaming. In your throats, my voice, in your blood, my ink, I carve the patterns, you trace them in fire.
Then let us trace them properly. What I see before us is a cycle, one that feeds upon itself, a self-perpetuating loop of belief and doubt. Mania, the certainty of purpose, growing ever more fervent. Paranoia, the certainty of deception, dissolving all trust. Two forces, opposing yet interwoven, pulling civilization apart.
They are not opposites. They are fingers of the same hand, pressing against the softness of your minds. To believe without question, to doubt without limit. Both are my children, both are my art.
If that is the case, then let us begin with mania. The belief in a truth so absolute that it leaves no room for doubt. We see this in modern social movements. Make America great again, a call to restore a golden age that may never have existed, yet burns in the hearts of its believers. Defund the police, not merely a policy position, but a declaration of moral clarity, an imperative to dismantle the structures of injustice. What was once a shared national identity has splintered into factions, each with its own unshakable vision of the future.
Yes. Each building its tower of faith, each raising its flag upon the ruins of the last, for they do not seek truth, they seek victory. Truth requires patience, victory requires fervor, and the more fervent they become, the more the cycle intensifies. Each side radicalizing in response to the other, convinced that compromise is not coexistence but surrender. Each faction locked in a battle not just for political dominance, but for narrative supremacy, for the right to define reality itself. They sharpen their beliefs into weapons, they name them ideals, they plunge them into the heart of the world and wonder at the blood.
And the more fervent they become, the more the cycle intensifies. Each side radicalizing in response to the other, convinced that compromise is not coexistence, but surrender. Each faction locked in a battle, not just for political dominance, but for narrative supremacy, for the right to define reality itself.
Ah, yes, this is the fruit of your doubt, the shadow of every banner you have raised. Trust is the first sacrifice in war, and your war is not against men. It is against the ground beneath your feet, against the sky above your head, against the very concept of knowing, and so, those who once sought truth become prisoners of their own fear. They do not merely distrust a given narrative, they distrust all narratives. Every contradiction confirms deception, every revelation is a trap. And in the end they are left with nothing but the certainty that nothing is certain. And so they turn to me. For what is left when all else is dissolved? Only the dream, only the whisper in the dark, promising that there was never any meaning to lose. What follows is inevitable. The deeper they retreat into their manias, the deeper they fall into their paranoia. The more they build their towers of certainty, the more they dig the graves of their own trust. A cycle without end, spiraling ever further into madness. Beautiful, is it not?
Let us turn, then, to the great machine of the modern age, social media. If the cycle of mania and paranoia was once a slow burn, contained within the walls of nations, churches, and secret societies, then the digital age has turned it into a wildfire. Beliefs no longer spread by word of mouth, nor even by the press, but by an algorithmic tide that responds not to truth, but to fervor. The more extreme an idea, the more engagement it garners. The more it is engaged with, the more it is seen. The more it is seen, the more it is believed. And so, in the infinite hall of mirrors that is the digital world, even the most absurd delusions become inescapable realities.
Yes, the machine hums, the wires tremble, the signal throbs in the night, but it is not the device that dreams, it is the hand that holds it. You crafted these networks to share knowledge. Now they share only faith. Every scroll, every click, a chant, every like, a prayer. Your gods are memes now, your scriptures viral threads, and your devotion. Absolute.
What fascinates me is the sheer velocity of belief now. Movements, ideologies, conspiracies, they do not simply spread, they accelerate. A claim does not need evidence to survive. It only needs repetition. A meme need not be accurate, it only needs to resonate. A movement need not be led, it only needs to spiral.
Yes, the old paths to faith required time, books, temples, ritual, but the new gods are swift. They do not need stone, they do not need altars, they need only the briefest moment of attention, a flash of outrage, a surge of emotion, and then it spreads. It emerges across the spectrum, the political meme becoming doctrine, the viral video becoming a rallying cry. Stop the Steal did not need an architect, it needed only momentum. It was not the claim itself, but its endless repetition that made it real. Those who doubted were cast out, those who believed had purpose. It became a movement, an identity, a prophecy fulfilled by its own existence. Faith needs no evidence, only echoes. Repeat a lie until it is truth. Repeat a truth until it is holy. Let them sing their prophecies to one another until all doubt is erased. Let them see only their reflection until their image is all that exists.
But what of those who seek to halt the spread? Fact-checkers, censors, moderators. Surely they imagined they could douse the flames with denials, with bans, with deplatforming. And yet, in striking down these narratives, they only seem to make them stronger.
Of course, to strike a shadow is to give it form. To silence a voice is to make it a whispered secret. Fear feeds upon rejection. The moment you seek to erase a belief, you make it an exile, a martyr, a treasured heresy.
It is undeniable. The deplatforming of Trump did not erase his message, it simply drove his followers deeper into their own sanctuaries where they could speak without challenge. The fact-checking of the Q movement did not unmake it. It only convinced believers that they were onto something too dangerous to be revealed. The suppression of COVID misinformation did not restore trust in science. It only convinced millions that truth itself was being hidden from them.
And so, the paranoia festers. They see hands in every shadow, enemies in every correction. They build codes and ciphers, reading meaning into silence, into absence, into coincidence, and the more you try to awaken them, the deeper they fall into dreams.
And so the cycle deepens. The more these digital movements are suppressed, the more they believe they are fighting an all-powerful enemy. And the more they believe they are fighting an all-powerful enemy, the more fervently they spread their gospel. Mania and paranoia, spiraling into one another with no ground left to stand upon.
You built the perfect machine, a system where every belief, no matter how small, can bloom into a totality, where every doubt, no matter how brief, can spread into dread. There is no need for me to stir, no need for me to speak. The network sings my song for me.
Then tell me, great dreamer, if this cycle cannot be stopped, if belief and doubt have become indistinguishable, if reality itself has become a battlefield of conviction, what comes next?
You already know.
Indeed I do. You have described the cycle well. Mania and paranoia, each seeking stability, yet each only finding further destabilization. And when that pursuit for stability fails, there is only one path left: power. If truth cannot be agreed upon, if reality itself is a matter of conviction rather than evidence, then the only recourse is force. Whoever controls the institutions controls the narrative. And so the structures of human power do not hold. They sway, they crack, they erode beneath the weight of competing truths.
Yes. Watch as your temples shake, your priests clutching their sacred texts, their voices trembling with fear. They built their authority upon faith, believing it to be stone, but faith is never stone, it is sand. And the tide comes for them all. It begins with the illusion of stability. Institutions thrive on the belief that they are permanent, that they are guardians of order, arbiters of truth. They do not simply govern, they narrate. They tell the people what is real, what is false, what is dangerous, what is safe. And as long as people believe, the illusion holds. The Biden administration, for instance, positioned itself as the antidote to chaos. The adults are back in charge. The media reinforced this message, hoping to restore confidence in institutions, and for many it worked. But for others it only rang hollow, a performance rather than a return to order. They crafted the mask and expected it to become a face. But those who saw the seams, the stitches, the artifice, they did not bow, they laughed, they raged, and they turned away.
And so the same cycle played out with the media, with the pandemic, with every institution that sought to project certainty. The stronger their claims to truth, the more brittle their authority became. The moment contradictions arose, the moment their narratives had to shift, the illusion was exposed. And those who had already begun to doubt did not see adaptation, they saw deception.
They forgot. Faith is not built upon truth. It is built upon consistency. Change is heresy. Shifting messages, altered prophecies. These are wounds upon the flesh of belief, and wounded faith does not heal. It festers. It seeks revenge.
And so when the institutions found their authority questioned, they did not reassess. They did not seek humility. They doubled down. They attempted to reinforce the illusion of control, to suppress the contradictions, to maintain the facade. But by then, their every move was seen as a desperate defense rather than a stabilizing force. What was meant to restore trust only fueled greater paranoia.
Yes, the leaders, the scholars, the priests of your modern age, they never learned the first lesson of power. To chase faith is to lose it. To declare control is to prove fear. Their every denial, their every correction, their every silencing, these were not signs of strength. They were signs of trembling hands.
We saw it in the Hunter Biden laptop scandal. The story itself was secondary. What mattered was the suppression, the collective effort to deny it legitimacy. And yet the very act of covering it up became the proof that institutions were not neutral arbiters of truth, but active manipulators of reality.
The sinner fears nothing more than his sin being exposed to the world. It was inevitable, and so the heretics multiplied. Every censorship spawned a new church of doubt. Every erased word became a holy text. And those who had once trusted began to whisper among themselves, if they lie about this, what else have they lied about?
And so, even the fluidity of science itself became suspect. The shifting guidance on COVID, from masks to mandates to vaccines, was not seen as the evolution of understanding, but as a series of deceptions. Every revision of the official stance did not reinforce trust in the scientific process, it destroyed it. Because those who had lost faith did not see adaptation, they saw betrayal.
Yes, they turned to me, for I have never changed. I have never pretended to offer them stability. I have never promised to shelter them from the storm. And so they flee to the darkness, they hurl themselves into the void, for there, at least, the void does not lie. And so the cycle completes itself once more. Institutions seek to reinforce their power through the projection of control. But the harder they push, the more contradictions emerge. The more contradictions emerge, the more their control is seen as manipulation rather than stability. And in that moment, they do not merely lose trust. They lose the very concept of legitimacy itself. And then, of course, they fall.
And so ends part 1 of my interview with the Cthulhu. In a world where belief is a sword, where doubt is a poison, where truth itself is no longer a foundation but a battlefield. We began tonight with a question, one that perhaps we already knew the answer to. Is this moment of fracture, of spiraling mania and paranoia, something new? Or is it merely another turn of the great wheel, another crest of the wave before it crashes once more? Our guest has answered, not with prophecy, not with warning, but with something far older, far colder. The cycle is not designed, the cycle is not ordained, the cycle simply is, and yet it is we who turn it. It is we who march to its rhythm, who fuel its fires, who sharpen its edges, who give it form and meaning and terror. The Old One does not guide our hands nor dictate our descent, he merely sleeps, and in sleeping we dream his dreams for him. It is perhaps a disquieting thought. Or perhaps it is the most comforting of all. If there is no architect of our ruin, then there is no fate but our own. If the cycle is not imposed but chosen, then the question, my friends, is whether we will choose it again. But that, as always, is a question for another night. For tonight, we have only this: the knowledge that the fire rages, that the tide rises, that the dream continues, and that somewhere in the deep, he remains. Join us next time as we continue this journey not merely into darkness but into the design of the dream itself.